And it is confirmed. Elliot Anderson to Manchester City for 116 million is confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. Elliot Anderson. What can't I say about Elliot Anderson? I love Elliot Anderson as a player, right? Ever since that United game where he basically dictated the whole game for Nottingham Forest, and where he was the best midfielder on the pitch, even though Bruno Fernandes was in that game. I thought Elliot Anderson was clearing out the best midfield on the pitch that day. He is now a Manchester City player, and all I can say about Man City is they have the best performing. They have the best performing central midfielder in the Premier League, in my opinion. Right. I think midfield in general, the best performing one was Bruno Fernandes, but Elliot Anderson. Before I get to talking about this price tag, I just want to show you man his stats, right? Because when you look at, hold up, I gotta read the prem. Yes, we are. But when you look at Elliot Anderson's stats, that look off to me. Actually, 1 second. 1 second here, people. 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, we're not in the Premier League. Yeah, when you look at Eddie Anderson's stats, and we don't like we're not here to deep dive on numbers, and I already did that before. But when you just zoom through them, it's just all greens. When you compare Eddie Anderson to other midfielders, he is the premium package, right? And certain stats that I want to highlight, that I want to give you, man, is this one right here. Where is it? 3,000 touches. And it's not 3,000 touches of just him doing rondos with his center backs or him doing 1-2s with his midfield. This is 3,000 touches of him progressively moving the ball forward. 3,000 touches of him attacking dribbling spaces, finding positions in opponent's box. 62 touches in the opponent's box in the 96th percentile when it comes to midfielders, right? Fouls drawn 100 percentile. The guy is all action, and this is the modern day Premier League footballer or midfielder, sorry, all action. Boom, 54 creations. The guy is the heart and soul of Nottingham Forest, right? His defensive stats speak for themselves, right? This isn't a stats video. This isn't me trying to convince you that Eddie Anderson is good because the guy has signed for Man City. The guy is already obviously good enough to play for Man City. And to talk about it, one second. But to speak about it, the guy is obviously good for Man City, right? And the guy is obviously one of the best performing midfielders. And he is, in my opinion, the premium mold of the most important midfielder archetype that the Premier League has now, which is all action midfielders. The guy that can do everything, right? He is the premium example of that this summer, right? Where we're seeing it now with all the midfielders linked. Elliot Anderson, Alessandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Mateus Fernandes. We even saw it with older midfielder signings, right? Declan Rice, Enzo Fernandez, was Moises Caicedo, right? Those are seven midfielders that are either going to move from their clubs or have moved from their clubs to bigger clubs that are all action midfielders that can do everything on the pitch for you. And the price tag of Elliot Anderson at 116 million is something that I thought at first I was like, whoa, but then I thought about it in a more sense of I'm not gonna think about it as a outside. I'm gonna think about it as a Nottingham Forest fan or Nottingham Forest manager. Elliot Anderson, your best performing player, arguably the best player outside the big six clubs performing. What him and Igor Jesus. Nottingham Forest now have to go and find a replacement for Elliot Anderson that fits his mold. That fits his mold and that can now fit what he did for that club. Right? And that's not an easy task, right? They might have to go and sign two players to fit the bill of what Elliot Anderson did for them, right? And 116 million is one how the market of football is going because we're seeing Julian Alvarez 150 offer from Barcelona, Michael Olise 150 offer from Real Madrid, right? Obviously, some of these offers might not be legit, or some of these offers might just be them just throwing out numbers to see what ballpark they can get into. But this is just the progression and the linear movement that football is going through nowadays, right? And you always see it, right? You always see a mid-table player get a jump to a higher Premier League club for a higher fee. McAllister, with Caicedo, right? In the Premier League, if you're trying to buy, or you're a Premier League club trying to buy a player from a mid-table club, you're going to have to pay an extreme fee, right? And I think Premier League clubs are going to stop trying to buy homegrown players or players from other clubs because Elliot Anderson, Elliot Anderson, 116 million is a hard fee to look at and to be comfortable with buying, right? Because there's obviously talent out there in other leagues that can come and play in the Premier League. We just seen it now. Ryan Cherky cost 30 million for Manchester City to sign, and obviously you can say, oh, Ryan Cherky is one of very few players, right? But 36 million, yeah, 36 million for Ryan Cherky and what he did this season. Arguably signing of the season. The guy had the second most assists behind Bruno Fernandes, right? There are players that you can buy, right? Because I'm thinking, obviously, some of the players that I might suggest aren't to the caliber of Elliot Anderson, but they can fill his shoes. Not fill his shoes, but they can they can do close to what Elliot Anderson does, but just don't want to buy him because Elliot Anderson is again, as I've been saying, because I've been glazing the guy, is the premium midfielder that most Premier League clubs would want, right? And even when you look at the England squad, I think I had the England squad up here somewhere. Yeah, I did. When you look at the England squad, this Ghana game, this midfield three is I think, the embodiment of a peak midfield or an all-action midfield. Declan Rice is comfortable with progressing the ball. Elliot Anderson is comfortable with pressing the ball. Jude Bellingham is comfortable pressing the ball. They're all three of them. They're comfortable defensively, and you are very much okay. Obviously, you'd probably want Jude in that position, but with them taking a shot in the box or them trying to feed in Harry Kane or Nani Madueke, whoever's on the wing, whoever's a striker, you're comfortable with all three of them making that pass because they have the technical ability. And this is a all-action midfield. Obviously, when people talk about midfields, the first midfield they talk about is Portugal's, right? But one thing about Portugal's midfield, obviously they don't get pushed around, but at some point you might like if you're at some point a butter might just be bigger than you and he will push you around. But what? Declan Rice is what, 6 foot? You see here? What's that? 6 foot? 6 foot one, right? He's 6 foot one. I think he's like 5'11", 6 foot. He's about 6 foot two. This is a big midfield. This is a big, strong, all-action midfield. These are athletes in midfield, as most people want to say athletes. These are athletes in midfield, right? But a question that I want to pose now is, if Elliot Anderson is 116 million, and I saw Lias talk about this in his video, with Elliot Anderson is 16 million, how much would another player that might leave this summer be? How much would Vinicius Junior be if he had to leave Real Madrid? Is he 190? Is he 200 million? Because if he's 116 and Bayern Munich have said no to 150 for Michael Eaton, mm, obviously I think Bayern are less in the zone of selling Michael Elise because they're thinking that this guy is our player basically for life in a sense, right? And I think Madrid are more okay with letting go of Vinicius Junior, but they still have to find and buy a replacement for what Vinicius Junior brings. And the name of Vinicius Junior holds so much weight. And if he's 116, and I think I said this analogy before to some of my friends, but if you say you're Bayern Munich or you're so and so club, and you look and you see Florian Wirtz just got signed for, I think it was 115, or I can't remember how much it was. Are you okay with saying that Michael Elise is 40 million, or is a 40 million, or is 40 million better than Florian Wirtz? No, and you hear this thing. No, he's much higher than Florian Wirtz. He costs much more for Florian Wirtz because of what he's shown this summer, right? Because Michael Elise is a top five footballer, and I think those top five footballers, we're talking about, we're talking about Erling Haaland, we're talking about Mbappe, we're talking about Vinny, we're talking about Michael Olise, of course, we're talking about Lamine Yamal, we're talking about those guys like a Pedri, like a Jude Bellingham. Those guys are going to cost. Now in this market, if they had to go, you're looking at 190, you're looking at 180, you're looking at 200. The next 200 signing might be closer than we all think, right? But that's the way of football. Obviously, I think it's become skewed because some teams they don't want to uh, at least buy smart in my head. And the one team I'm talking about is Barcelona. Barcelona signing Anthony Gordon for 70 million. I think it messed up the economy because me personally, I think you can find somebody else in Spain, or even keeping Marcus Rashford and paying a cheaper price to go and buy another player is better than signing Anthony Gordon. And I'm not saying Anthony Gordon is dog shit, right? But Anthony Gordon didn't have a good game against Ghana, and all the bad things about Anthony Gordon were shown against Ghana, right? There is a higher chance of you keeping Anthony Gordon quiet than there is of you keeping somebody else quiet like a Marcus Rashford, because Anthony Gordon doesn't have that attacking prowess that other people have. But this isn't an Anthony Gordon breakdown video of him being signed to Barcelona. But my question is, if he's 116, how much is Vinny? How much is Holland? How much are these players? And second question, is the next is the next 200 million signing soon? Is it before 2030? Is it before 2035? Will it never happen because these players won't leave? Who knows? But that's it for the video. Elliot Anderson to Man City is confirmed. In short note, they picked up one of the best midfielders in the world, and they now have one of the best two double pivots in the world with him and Rodri. Even though Rodri isn't prime Rodri because of his injuries, still Rodri, still Elliot Anderson. The midfield is great. But yeah, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, right? Comment your thoughts about Elliot Anderson. Do you think he's as good as I think he is? If you think he's worse, explain why, right? Do you think Vinny does cost 200 million? If you don't think Vinny costs 200 million, and that 200 million price tag will never be broken because no club will pay that, explain why. That's it. See you, man, in the next video.